Hi everybody, today I'm sharing my 9 best sourdough bread making tips after 3 years of bread making, and these really took my loaves from dense to nice and airy and fluffy. So when you first start sourdough, you get a lot of really vague advice like feed it after it's peaked and don't let it over ferment and make sure your starter is active and let it rise as long as it needs to. And this just is really frustrating because for me at least, I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. I need something more concrete here. And it's like, you can't time it. You just have to do it when it's ready. And that really confused me. But luckily, my brother had put a lot of time into sourdough and researching it, and he actually gave me really good tips. So a lot of the tips that I'm sharing with you today are actually from him, and it really helped me get my starter active and actually doubling or more in size. Before it used to just barely go up a little bit and I didn't understand why. And it got my loaves from being dense and having those like dense wet sections where it just doesn't rise very much to actually being airy and light. So I wanted to share this now because I think I'm still like fresh enough to remember that beginner struggle with sourdough where once you've done something for a long time, sometimes you kind of forget what it felt like when you first started. So I feel like 3 years is enough time that I have some experience and have made a lot of progress, but I still kind of remember what it feels like to be a beginner. So I have 9 tips for you today, and they are timestamped below if you want to skip around to a specific one. And I also want to mention, since my main topic on this channel is gut health and healing your gut, I do want to note that sourdough is much better for your gut than other breads. The fermentation breaks down anti-nutrients. It makes it a lot easier to digest. It's way better for you. If you have gut issues, you really should wait till you're healed to start introducing sourdough. I know it can be a little bit of a pain, but it's very much worth it. So if you are struggling with gut issues, come back to this after you've healed and been healed for a few months, and then you can get your sourdough going, and it's something to look forward to. And then if you've been watching my videos for a while and already healed, then congratulations, it's sourdough time, and that's exciting. So anyway, I have been having this for the past few years. I did wait a few years after healing just to be sure, but I've been having it and it doesn't aggravate my gut at all. It doesn't cause any flare-ups, so it really is nice. So the very first tip is to acquire your starter. Now, I will have a little more tips beyond this, but basically you need a starter to make sourdough. So you can make your own, you can buy one, or you can get one from a friend. I made my own. I would honestly recommend getting it from a friend or buying it because it caused me a lot of unnecessary headache. I will link one below that you can order. I have not ordered it personally, but it looks like a very good one. I used her recommendation for how to feed the starter, which I'll get into later, and that's worked really well. So I think that it's probably a good one. And if you can get it from a friend, that's even better and more convenient. Basically, you'll be starting with something richer in bacteria than if you make it your own. You just have to start with flour and water. If you do want to make your own, I will leave a link below to the recipe that I used for making my own, though. So it's an option as well. But one way or another, you need a starter. If you buy it, or if you buy it, usually you buy it like dehydrated and you have to rehydrate it at home. But it'll give you instructions on how to do that. And if you get it from a friend, like, you can just start using it immediately, where mine was weak and I was trying to figure things out with it and my loaves just weren't turning out good. And it took me a while to like get my starter good enough to actually be making loaves. I did make a lot of mistakes though. But anyway, so after you have your starter, my second tip is to use the right flour. I used old flour to start with, and that did not help. So you do really want fresh flour is really good. Just don't use a flour that's been sitting in the cupboard for a while. Do yourself a favor and buy a new one. I know I was like, I can save $10, and then I just had a bunch of headache with my starter. So just have a fresh flour that you just bought. Use bread flour, not all-purpose flour. This was a tip my brother gave me, and it really helped a lot. Bread flour is made for making bread. It will do better. I believe it has a little more gluten in it. It just like helps your bread work a lot better. And then also your starter should have the same flours you're using in your baked goods. So for me, I use a mix of whole wheat and bread flour. So I keep the ratios similar to what I cook with that are in my starter. So for my starter, when I go to feed it, I use 140 grams of flour, and I do about 25 of those grams from whole wheat flour and about 115 of those from the bread flour. Then when I'm making recipes, I'll use about a fifth or a quarter of the flour as whole wheat and the rest as the bread flour. So that'd be like 4/5 to 3/4. I tried making very whole wheat loaves and it is a pain. It's very hard. So I would recommend getting good at white or more white with just a little bit of whole wheat like I do loaves before you start trying more whole wheat loaves, because it's just like denser and harder. It weighs more to get it to rise as well. So yeah, definitely use good bread flour. I like King Arthur for bread flour, and I like Bob's Red Mill for the whole wheat flour. It's very important that you get organic. Wheat is one of the crops that's very heavily sprayed with glyphosate, which is very bad for your gut and a lot of other things. So, especially if you just healed, you really want to be doing the best for it. So that's one of those things I don't budge on for organic. I need organic flour when I'm having that, and organic wheat products. So yeah, those are the flours I recommend, and it really does make a big difference. You could of course do all white if you want. I like the taste of a little whole wheat in there though. You can mill your own fresh if you want to too, but if you're just starting sourdough, you might not want to take that on at the moment too. I have not done that, so I can't really speak to that. The third tip is understanding how your starter works. This helped me so much. Just understanding how something works, you can troubleshoot it so much better. So your starter is full of bacteria that need to eat. Feeding it is giving them flour and water. They can eat the flour and water and multiply with bacteria. This is what happens as the starter rises. Once the bacteria have eaten all the food available from feeding it, the flour and water, it reaches its peak size. Then there's no more food, and I believe the bacteria start to die off, but it reduces in size. So at the peak, and then when it's reducing, it has kind of the most bacteria that it can have, where when it's rising on the way up, you have kind of a partial starter high bacteria, but you also have just kind of some plain flour water in there. So you can see this really well when you use a clean jar for your starter. So every time you feed it, you want a new clean jar. Yes, at the beginning, I don't need to change the jar every time. I can just keep using the same one. I can just discard a little bit and add a little bit of food. And it's a pain, and it's not that hard to get a clean jar. I know I didn't feel like doing it, but it makes a huge difference. And if you keep using the same jar when it is time to clean it, it is so hard to get all of that off. So, and even the top starts to like thicken. It's just kind of it's worse. If you get a clean jar every time you feed it, then once you feed it, you can wipe it out and have it clear all the way up to where it's starting. And then you put a rubber band around the jar right where it's starting after you fed it. And then the rubber band shows you the starting place. Then the starter will rise and rise and rise. So if you look at it and it's all clean jar and just your starter, it's still rising. But once it's peaked and then it starts reducing in its size, you will see like marks on the side of the jar of how high it got and then how high it is now. This is also really nice because I didn't really see how high my starter was going in the beginning. And I was like, maybe it's getting higher overnight when I don't see it, and then it's on its way down in the morning. So this way, it doesn't matter if it peaks at 3 o'clock in the morning, you'll get to see how high it goes, and it's kind of rewarding to see it go higher and higher. So I will get to this in a second, but understanding how your starter works like this is absolutely key for understanding when to feed it and when to bake with it. So number 4 is feed your starter optimally. So you want to feed your starter only after it's peaked and is coming back down. So basically you should see on your starter, there's a mark of it's already gone up this high and now it's lower. That means it is already peaked. So that is when you want to feed it. This is important because you discard a lot of the starter or you use it in baking. You only take 30 grams of that starter into the new jar to feed it. So you want to make sure that what you're bringing over is very bacteria rich. This is a problem I ran into in the beginning. I didn't understand this process, and I was feeding it on like a timed schedule, and someone had said to do it every 12 hours, and I was doing that, and mine does not peak in 12 hours. Mine needs longer for where I live and the temperature it is. So I was just diluting it, and when you feed it too soon, the mixture you get isn't going to be that rich bacteria. It's going to be the bacteria that still has food in there that it was still feeding on. So it gets weaker and weaker and like worse at rising, because you're just getting your bacteria count very low if you feed it too often. Okay, so here's how you're going to feed your starter. So you do it after it's peaked, and you get a kitchen scale. You need a kitchen scale. I tried to get around this too, but you just believe me, you need a kitchen scale for doing sourdough. It's really important. You can buy one for like $12 on Amazon. It's not that big of a deal. But if you go to a kitchen store, they're all going to be like $80. So you don't need the fanciest scale, but you do need a kitchen scale. So you get your clean jar, put it on the scale, make sure it's tarred. That just means the weight says 0 with the jar on it. And you put 30 grams of starter in it. Then I like to tar it again. It's just easier. You add 140 grams of flour. So I like to do, like I said, about 25 whole wheat, and what would that be? 115 of bread flour. And you use 125 grams filtered water. Filtered is important because chlorine and other things that can be in tap water can actually kill off some of the bacteria and make your starter weaker. So then you want to mix it really, really well. I like to use a wooden spoon. I don't know if the whole metal is not good for starter. I don't know if that's true or not, so I just avoid using it, and I like using wood. But you basically just stir it really, really well, and then kind of level it out, and then you can use a wet little towel or a wet paper towel to just clean all the edges, so that you have clean edges, and you'll be able to see, or like sides of the jar, so you'll be able to see how far it rises up. And then so I always feed my starter after it peaked, but for me, this is about 24 hours to sometimes I wait 36 hours, and 24 is very reliable for me, but I don't have it super exact. It's more like I kind of keep track. Like I fed it this morning, and I don't think I fed it yesterday. I'd fed it like the day before, later in the day. So it's like, okay, it definitely needs to be fed. So I don't really like pushing it much past a day and a half, so 36 hours. It still seems fine if I push it to 2 days, but anywhere from that every day to every day and a half seems to be best. If I'm about to bake with it, I'll try to be on the everyday schedule. That seems to work a little bit better. The most important thing is that you feed it after it's peaked, but you also don't want to wait too long. That could be a problem, so I really wouldn't wait more than 2 days. The fifth tip is to leave it on the counter. So you might know you can put it in the fridge, but it will slow everything way down. And there's a place for this. You know, I do that when I'm going on vacation for a week and I can't feed it all week and I don't want to bring it with me. Like, it can go in the fridge, and that's okay. But at the beginning, I didn't want to be spending as much on flour, and it was kind of like, I don't want to have to feed this all the time. So I would stick it in the fridge, like right when I was done baking, and then I thought like a few days on the counter would be fine before I was baking again. And I don't know, maybe that works for some people. It did not work well for me. So leaving it on the counter makes a world of difference. Like, yes, you have to feed it every day or every day and a half, and you have to clean the jar out, but it's really rewarding once you start making it and you get more in the rhythm of it, and it's really not too bad. My sixth tip is what to do if you don't have a Dutch oven. So a Dutch oven is very common for making bread because you have the nice cast iron pot and then you have the lid, and that really helps the steam and it helps it rise. I do not have one. I probably should have one by now, but I don't. So what I do is I use a cast iron pan, and then I put another pan below that that's filled with water, so that just makes it a little bit more moist in the oven and prevents it from like drying out too soon before it's risen. And I do preheat the pan in the oven for an hour, so that gets the oven and the pan nice and toasty. And then when I'm right about ready to put my bread in, I have it in the fridge before I cook it. I bring it out, I put it on a piece of parchment paper, I score it, I'll talk about that in a second. And then I put that into the pan in the oven. And then that's when I put the other pan with the water in. You don't need the water in it for the hour you're preheating it. So anyway, that has worked really well for me. That was an idea from my brother, and I really like that one. So my 7th tip is to use a razor blade to score. It's just going to be really sharp. It's going to give really nice edges. If you know what the ears are in scoring, it's going to give you nice ears. But if you don't know, don't worry about it. But basically, they're really sharp. What I do is my method for baking, which I will leave the recipe down below. It's not my recipe, it's somebody else's. But I have it where it's like in the fridge before, and that kind of shock from the fridge to the hot 500 degree oven is really nice for getting a rise, and it's also really nice for scoring. So I'll dust a little bit of flour on top, and then I'll score it. Scoring is really important. I have forgotten to score it before, and it's not as good. It won't rise as much. And scoring is just that like design you can make. You can kind of do it however you want on top of the bread. And yeah, that's about it. It's just the razor blade is really good. It's going to be sharper and better than a knife for that. And you can get like I have like a pack, like 200, because I use them for my actual razor blades too. It's like the safety razor kind, and they're really cheap. It's not crazy. So then number 8 is to find a warm place for your dough to rise. I know this is kind of obvious and everyone kind of knows that, but I kind of struggled with this. Like just setting it in the sun isn't always enough for me. Where I live now, it's a little easier. Not this time of year. This time of year, it's getting chilly, but in the summer here, it's a little easier. I have some spots I can put it. But the thing that's worked the best for me is actually putting my dough in the oven when it's rising. And what I do is first, with nothing in the oven, I turn it on very low at like 200 for a minute or two, depending on how hot your oven is. I used to have a very slow, not very hot oven, and I would do 2 minutes. Now I have a very hot oven and I only do a minute, and then you turn it off. So then you put your dough in, and you have it's rising, so your dough is in a bowl and it's covered with a wet towel. You put it in there, and then I like to put a towel like awkwardly on the stove covering it, just to be safe, so that I don't accidentally turn on the oven to like preheat for another meal, like forget about it. And then just from time to time I do that again, like just that minute or two, and like put a timer on there, or stand there counting there, or take your bread out in between, just to make sure you don't accidentally leave it on too long, because if you do that, it's gonna like kill the bacteria and prevent it from rising anymore and screw up your bread. So it's just ever so subtly heating the oven so it's a little bit warmer in there, and feel it with your hand. It should feel like, you know, a temperature you'd be comfortable standing in. You know, it's just trying to mimic like a hot sunny day kind of thing. Yeah, and then, you know, if it is a hot sunny day, you could put it in the sun. You could also put it near a wood burning stove in the winter, and also definitely take your towel and like re-wet it and wring it out from time to time, because either the sun or the heat in the oven can dry it out, and you want it to be wet, because if it gets dried out, your bread can start to dry out. Number 9 is get good recipes. I have used recipes that aren't very good, and that does not help. So read them ahead of time so you can plan when you want to start and when you need to do each step. Now, this is the hardest the first time you make a recipe, and then when you start making those ones over and over again, it gets a lot easier. Some recipes will even have like a start this process at this time and this process at that time, and that's really helpful. So for example, for my bread recipe, what I do, and I will link that below, again, it's not my recipe, it's Lisa from Farmhouse on Boone's recipe, and I really like that one. So I like to get the starter on like a morning feed schedule. So I plan in advance a lot for everything. So for me, I like to make sure it's like being fed in the morning. So the day before I'm going to use it, it was fed in the morning, so that at least 24 hours goes by before I want to use it. So then the next morning after it's peaked and it's going down, I'll start it around 10 a.m. So this is 2 days before you want to actually have your bread. So that day you're feeding it is 2 days before you want it, to make sure you have it fed in the morning. So then the next day I will start my bread around 10. I do always make sure it's peaked first and started to go down. So sometimes that means I have to wait a little bit longer, but as long as I fed it before 10, or by 10 the day before, it should be fine. Then I mix things together. I'll have the recipe below. You mix the flour and the water, and you let it like sit for 30 minutes, and then you add the starter and salt, and then you knead it for like 5 minutes, and then you do your stretch and fold. So I do like the stretch and fold method. At first I thought like, oh, it's not working for me, and then I gave it another chance, and it's amazing. I love that method. So you do those. It's all in that recipe, so I won't get too crazy. You do bulk fermentation, which is basically just after you've stretched and folded it, and you just let it sit and really ferment. And then I just let it rise. I like the oven method the best. And then again, this is like your normal oven, but you heated it for a second. Like it's not hot. It's not hot in there. It shouldn't be. It should just be like a hot sunny day in there. So then around 8 or 9 at night is when I shape it and I put it into the fridge. It's all outlined in that recipe, so that's why I'm not going into too much detail here. But yeah, so then I let it sit in the fridge overnight, and I do not have a special bread bowl, so I use a regular bowl, and I put a bandana in it to be like a bread bowl, and then cover it with that wet wrung out towel. Then earlier in the day for the rising, I'm not having a bandana in it. It's just a regular bowl, but this is at that ending part. And then it sits there overnight, and then the next morning I make it. I find that I can't quite get it ready in time for breakfast, so I get it ready in time for lunch, and then I have a nice lunch that has some bread in it. One more bonus tip is to use like warm water in your recipes. So when you're having it have like water and flour and starter added, I like to warm the water up on the stove a little bit. If you do it too hot, it can kill the bacteria and ruin your bread, but if you just get it lukewarm, you can feel it with your finger to make sure it's not too hot. Then that'll help the whole dough be a warmer temperature and rise faster. Also with back to the timeline of me baking it in the morning, I do preheat the cast iron pan, like I said, in the oven for an hour first, and then it takes 45 minutes to bake. So just plan that in, and then just the more and more you get used to a certain recipe, the easier you'll figure this out for yourself and how that works. And really my favorite sourdough recipes are all from Farmhouse on Boone, so I'll link that down below. I like to make the bagels, I like to make the bread. That she has like rolls and cookies and muffins, and she just has all sorts of things that are really good. So anyway, I will leave some links down below, like I mentioned, where you can buy a starter, how you can make a starter, some of the bread recipes, things like that. It's really fun to make all their things. I find bread is kind of pretty much the hardest one. The other ones seem to come together really, really easy. But those are my best sourdough tips. I really hope they helped you. These are things that really helped me a lot. If you have additional tips, definitely put them down below. I would love to hear them, and I'm sure other people watching this video would appreciate other people's insight as well. So yeah, I'd love to hear those. And I do want to let you guys know I did just create a brand new course called Ancestral Gut Healing. It's designed to help you heal your chronic gut and digestive issues at the root using ancestral nutrition, holistic principles, and it's designed to help you get symptom-free as soon as possible. So if you are interested in healing your gut, I will leave a link down below where you can learn a little bit more and sign up if you'd like. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.